Vivo took us by surprise in 2019 with their budget offerings, right from the Vivo Z1X at the start of the year to their last major release of the year, the U20. They've all been very impressive launches with powerful specs at decent prices. Now that last launch, the U20, that's the one we are going to be talking about in today's video. My colleague Amartya decided to spend a little extra time getting to know it, so we're going to be doing a long-term review of this U20. How has it fared? Is this one worth paying attention to? Hey guys, Ash here from C4eTech. If you do end up finding this video interesting, subscribe, turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon. Let's now get this long-term review started. So I'm going to divide this review into things that we did like and things we weren't that fond of. Starting off, cameras, we really like them on the Vivo U20. The primary here is a 16 megapixel IMX499 sensor from Sony that's coupled with an f1.8 lens that gives a really nice natural depth of field. You can see in this picture, this white flower, it's pretty good. Pictures, they generally come out looking sharp with rich colors. In low light conditions, the Vivo U20's night mode also does well. Maybe it's not as good as, say, Redmi Note 8, especially with regards to detail, but the pictures have low noise and the colors do look natural. When it comes to wide angle, the 8 megapixel snapper here does pretty well. The dynamic range is a bit lacking, but that is something we often see with wide angle cameras in this segment, so can't count that as a huge con. As far as sharpness and colors go, I'd call them decent enough. The 2 megapixel macro camera, the detail levels were surprisingly good despite the 2 megapixel resolution count. Speaking of good, I've got to mention the selfie snapper too. The selfies with that 16 megapixel camera came out quite nicely with natural skin tones, and even the background seemed to be preserved well on most of the occasions, at least with the regular shots. With the portraits, at times there was some overexposure of the background. The edge detection, it was about okay. Vivo has thrown in a lot of different effects into the mix. There's also an AI-powered beauty mode if that's your thing. Now switching to rear portraits, the edge detection here, it's messed up at times, but once again the primary camera does its thing. It keeps the pictures natural with good levels of detail. As far as video goes, the U20 can capture 4K at up to 30 FPS. The footage looks nice, the dynamic range and detail, can't really complain about that. That said, the lack of stabilization, it's something that you can feel even while you're shooting standing still. EIS does kick in once we drop the resolution down to Full HD, and even at 1080p the footage still remains quite sharp. Vivo also supports video capture via the wide-angle camera. It's not the most detailed footage out there, but it's definitely usable. So overall, when it comes to the cameras, we really like the U20. It shoots good videos. The 16 megapixel primary can at times outperform the higher resolution competition in the same segment, and the U20 has a pretty strong selfie camera too. Next up, let's talk performance. Now this is also an area where I found Vivo pretty impressive. During the time that we spent with the U20, we did not notice any lag or frame drops. My colleague Amartya recently got addicted to this game called Wraith Shadow Legends. He spent a ton of time playing with it in the office, on weekends, even while on phone calls. And he was really happy with how the U20 managed to run it. Even with more demanding titles, the Adreno 612 GPU inside held its ground. Overall, we had no complaints with regards to performance. The U20 games just as well as it handles everyday tasks. Speaking of which, the U20 comes with 4 or 6 gigs of RAM, so we didn't notice many reloads while multitasking or swapping between apps on the fly. Talking about memory, both the 4 and 6 gig RAM versions of the U20 come with 64 gigs of UFS 2.1 internal storage. There's also a dedicated microSD card in here for storage expandability. Overall, for the price, this is one of the best hardware setups that you can get your hands on. It's not only the performance here, but also the battery life that was quite impressive. The 5000 mAh battery, when combined with that 11 nanometer Snapdragon 675, easily lasted us over a day and a half. Even if you do happen to run out of juice, the U20 comes with an 18-watt dual-engine fast charger in the box, so you can get juiced up pretty fast. So overall, we were pretty happy with the battery situation here, except for one thing, and that's micro USB. Especially given that most of the competition now have kind of moved to Type-C, even at this price point, it was a little disappointing that Vivo went with micro USB for the U20. Now, other than that though, the U20 does pretty well on the spec side. Despite being a budget offering, Vivo hasn't cut corners with, say, things like display resolution. We've got a 6.53-inch IPS panel with a Full HD Plus resolution. On top of that, we have Panda MN228 hardened glass protecting the panel, which Vivo says is harder than both Corning's Gorilla Glass 3 as well as 5. The bezels surrounding the panel, they're pretty small, and we just have a tiny little notch up top that holds the 16-megapixel selfie camera. So the tiny bezels along with a vivid screen and excellent viewing angles makes for a really immersive experience. We also have Wideband L1 certification, which means we could stream our favorite shows from Netflix or Amazon in high definition. My only minor complaint with the screen is brightness. Sometimes it gets difficult to read under the bright Chennai sun, which is not an uncommon issue in this price segment, but it is still an issue nonetheless. Anyway, moving on now, despite the big 6.53-inch screen and that 5000 mAh battery, Vivo has managed to keep the weight of the U20 under 195 grams. This meant I didn't feel it weighing down on my pockets or my arms getting tired after holding it up while binge watching whole seasons of TV shows. Of course, the larger size does mean that most of the times we ended up using two hands to operate the device, but overall, I am quite happy with how the U20 feels in hand. The back of the device is plastic, yes, and that means in hand the feel isn't as premium as, say, the Redmi Note 8. But I can't really count that as a con since glass builds are the exception in this price range rather than the norm. Let's now take a quick look at the sun rays before we jump into what I think is the biggest thing holding the U20 back. So we have a capacitive fingerprint sensor to the back, and it worked quite well even with sand in my hands. And it worked quite well. The other regular sensors are all there and accounted for. No FM radio though. The bottom firing speaker can get loud but lacks in richness. The headphone jack, on the other hand, it outputs reasonably adequate audio. No complaints about it. I guess now is as good a time as any to put in that call quality on the U20 was excellent. And there was no cellular reception issues either. Okay, by now many of you might have guessed what might be that biggest holdback for the U20, and it is FunTouch OS 9.2. Fundamentally, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with it. It's well optimized, the stock apps that we used worked fine, and honestly I quite like the features that it has to offer. The included dark mode works fantastically well, and we also found the ultra game mode pretty useful. But overall, it just has a huge adjustment curve. It's based on Android 9 Pie, but the basic navigations right from the control center to the missing settings cog in the notification shade, we found ourselves having to think a while for doing simple stuff like toggling on Bluetooth or jumping into settings to check the permissions for an app. Things that might have become instinctive to you after years of handling different interfaces might be things you'd have to relearn now. But again, do note that the con here is the learning curve, not the stability or usability of the interface itself. That said, it is worth mentioning that we did face some initial hiccups, including a few ads from pre-installed bloatware while using FunTouch OS. Finally, let's now talk pricing. The U20, it starts at 11,000 rupees for the 464 variant. For 1,000 rupees more, we get 2 extra gigs of RAM. Now, there is an offline-only variant of the U20 that comes with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, but at 18,000 rupees, now there's a reason it's offline only, right? Now coming back to the 11K base variant, the U20 offers a lot of bang for the buck. A powerful processor, great cameras, fast charging, and a Full HD Plus screen with best-in-class protection. So if you can live with FunTouch OS's steep learning curve and that micro USB port, then the U20, I'd say it's a phone that is worth looking into, especially in this price segment. And that is something we can say given that we've spent quite a bit of time with it. So what do you guys think? Would you pick up a U20 if you were looking for a phone in the 10K segment? Or is there something else that you feel would be better worth your money? Let me know in the comments below. And I guess that's pretty much it. Thumbs up, thumbs down based on whatever you felt about it. Subscribe, turn on notifications by hitting that bell icon if you haven't yet. Thanks a lot for watching. Till next time, my name's Ash. You've been watching C4E Tech, and I'm signing off for now. You guys have a great day. Bye-bye.